So chemistry is a subject that has many, many different applications, and it can be applied to crime. You can apply chemistry both to committing crimes and also to solving crimes, and that brings us to forensic science. Because many people think that forensic science is really about biology, but actually a lot of forensic science is based on chemistry. And that's why we started a forensic science elective course. This is open to all students at the university, and that of course includes anyone who comes to study chemistry. So what I'm going to do is just introduce you to some of the characters who appear in our forensic science course. So the first one is Colin Pitchfork. Now Colin Pitchfork is very famous in forensic science because he is the first person ever convicted of a crime through DNA evidence. So this goes back to 1983, when a teenage girl was found at a place called Narborough in England in the woods, and she'd been raped and murdered. And back in 1983, there was not much you could do to solve that crime. Then 3 years later, another victim was found, raped and murdered in pretty much the same place. And the police thought that the same man had committed both crimes. And then they got lucky because someone came forward and confessed. A young man called Richard Buckland came forward and confessed to the second crime, but not the first one. Now, the police were convinced that the same person had committed both crimes. Now, by chance, Narborough is near Leicester, which is where Professor Alec Jeffreys works, and he, of course, is the man who invented what we call DNA fingerprinting. So the police sent samples from the two crimes and from Richard Buckland to Alec Jeffreys to analyze. And so Alec Jeffreys came back and said that he'd got good news for them and bad news. The good news was that they were right. The same person had committed both crimes. The bad news was that it wasn't Richard Buckland. Buckland had actually confessed to a crime that he'd not committed. So how to catch the killer? What they did was to screen every single adult male in that town, sending all these blood samples to Alec Jeffreys to do the DNA analysis. And that is how Colin Pitchfork was caught. But it wasn't that simple. Colin Pitchfork played a trick, and he very nearly got away with murder. But he was caught. And if you want to know what his trick was and why it didn't work, well, you've got to come to CBC and take our forensic science course. Next character, Daniel Holdham. This is an Australian case, and it starts with a suitcase. This suitcase was left by the side of a highway at a place called Wainaka in South Australia. And after months and months and months, eventually somebody opened it up and had a look inside. And what they found inside was some clothing and the skeleton of a little girl. Now, to solve the case, you need to know the identity of the victim. But how can you identify someone who has been reduced to simply a skeleton? Well, it was through this. This is a quilt which was in the suitcase. And this is not just some quilt somebody bought from a store. This was a handmade quilt. In fact, it had been made by the little girl's granny. And because it was handmade, it is a unique object in the world. It is what we call individualized. And when this quilt was shown on Australian TV, a member of the family recognized it, called in, and provided the name of the little girl, Candace Pierce. Now, if a little girl is missing, where's the mother? It turns out the mother had also been murdered. And in fact, her remains, another skeleton, had already been found more than 1,000 kilometers away in New South Wales. And they were able to show that that skeleton was the mother through DNA. And there's the mother, Carly Pierce Stevenson. They had been murdered by Daniel Holdom. Now, how did the police identify Daniel Holdom as a suspect? How did they get a conviction for the two murders? And how did they reconstruct the whole story of how Holdom murdered them and deposited their remains so far apart in different places in Australia? So if you want to know, you've got to come to CBC and take the forensic science course. Okay, the next character is J.G. Haig. Now, J.G. Haig, this is in London back in the 1940s, and he earned a living by making friends with wealthy old ladies, cheating them out of their money, and then murdering them. And he faced the problem that all murderers have: what do you do with the body? And his solution was to use chemistry, specifically concentrated sulfuric acid. And what he would do after he had shot these ladies in the head is that he would dissolve them in concentrated sulfuric acid, and then he would pour the resulting solution down the drains. So how was it proved that Haig was a murderer? Well, it turns out that there are certain parts of the human body which do not dissolve very well in concentrated sulfuric acid. And if you want to know what body parts those are, come to CBC and take our forensic science course. Next character is Graham Young. Graham Young, from when he was quite small, was very interested in chemistry. In particular, he was interested in poisoning. In fact, by the time he was a teenager, he had murdered his stepmother by poisoning her, and he was in a psychiatric hospital. So eventually, the psychiatrists decided that Graham had been cured, and he was released. And he found a job in a warehouse, what we would now call a logistics company. And one of his duties in this warehouse was making tea. And so he used that as an opportunity to continue his chemical experiments. So he would put poison in the tea and see what effect that had on his co-workers. So he didn't really want to kill anyone, he just wanted to see the effect. But he did kill 2 of his co-workers. Now, it was originally thought that these people were getting ill and then dying due to some virus or something like that. And so the bodies of those 2 victims were actually cremated before there was ever a police investigation. But people became suspicious, and eventually Graham Young was convicted of the 2 murders, and he spent the rest of his life in prison. Now, the reason that the police were able to get forensic evidence to convict Graham Young was because he used a poison called thallium, which was easily obtainable in those days because it was used as rat poison. And there is a very fundamental chemical principle that allowed the forensic scientists to prove that Graham Young used thallium. If you want to know what that principle was, come to CBC and take our forensic science course. So the last person I'll introduce you to is Adam. Unlike the first 4, Adam was not a criminal, Adam was the victim. So his body was found on the bank of the River Thames in London, but without the head, without the arms, without the legs, just wearing a pair of orange shorts. So what can forensic science do in order to identify Adam so that his killer can then be caught? Well, you can examine the shorts. They're made in China. They were sold in West Germany. You can examine the stomach contents, and the stomach contents told the police that this was not an ordinary murder. This was actually West African black magic. What they also did was chemical analysis of Adam's bones. Now, as you all know, the principal inorganic element in bones is calcium. But your bones also take up all sorts of trace elements from the environment. And those trace elements are characteristic of where you grow up, or at least they're characteristic of where your food grows. And they were able to show that Adam wasn't just from West Africa, he was from a very specific region of Nigeria. And he had been smuggled to London via West Germany for a black magic ceremony. So if you want to know who was Adam, and if you want to know who killed Adam, well, you can come to CBC and take this course, but we won't be able to tell you. Because even though forensic science was able to make advances in this case has never been solved, Adam has never been identified, and his killer has never been found. So that was just some of the characters in the course. This slide here shows you some of the other topics that we cover in the course. So if this kind of thing interests you, when you come to CBC, register for the forensic science course and learn more about these things.